What a show this was. 12 hours of a zombie apocalyptic show
filled with horror and gore. With an ending that was left up to interpretation, it's one that I thought I'd explain. So here is All of Us Are Dead ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. This TV show was something else. It brought something relatively different to the zombie TV show genre, and it finished in a way that left me a little surprised. With the area being bombed after luring many of the infected people into specific locations, there was only a fraction of the main group remaining when compared to what we saw at the start, due to most of them being claimed by the virus.
Once the bombs were dropped, we saw the commander take his own life, due to not being able to live with the fact that he had to kill innocent people in order to contain the spread of the virus, and it essentially being the only way to eliminate it after finding out that the host had to be destroyed and there being no other way. We then saw the group find their way to the quarantine safe zone after Chung-san was killed in the bombing after being bitten, and Namra ran off after almost biting Onjo and giving in to the zombie tendencies that we saw her resist throughout the entire runtime. After the group was safely inside, it then cut to 4 months and 17 days later, once there was no trace of any cases in the area that they've all been living in. This is what allowed them to come out of quarantine and for normal life to gradually start to resume. Once the date of freedom arrived, we saw Onjo almost as the lead character for the final section, walking through the camp past familiar faces, and you could sense that they hadn't really been together in a long while. You could feel the loneliness, grief, and lack of engagement that they had with one another. It was always said that if Namra were to meet them again, it would be on the other side of the wall, on the rooftop of the school, and a fire would be lit. That's how the group would know if they could go ahead and meet her. We see Onjo leaving a note amongst all of the others that had been placed where messages of sorrow, despair, and grief had been written for people that were claimed by the virus and succumbed to the zombie-like state. This is where she notices the fire in the distance, reminding her of what she said in the past. From here, she goes and tells Soo-hyuk that she wants him and only him to go with her to find Namra. It makes sense as he was Namra's love interest throughout the show. They go over the wall and into the area that was once so contaminated and run by these zombie-like beings during the night, as it's prohibited to go over the wall at any point, so they're doing it in a sneaky way. This is then when we see the whole gang arrive, as they all feel as though they deserve to be there after all losing someone and being close to death on multiple occasions. I found it to be quite a wholesome moment, and I did appreciate it quite a lot. As they walk through the familiar devastation and get on the roof, there's nobody there, until gradually we see Namra walking towards them in the fire, and she looks quite different to the last time we saw her. It's been 4 months and she's been living amongst the barren wasteland. But she looked better, and her wounds had healed. She's not yet ready to go back to civilization as Onjo asks her to, but she states that she feels as though she's in this transitional period where she's no longer human, but she's also not fully a monster. She's a hybrid, and she used a great analogy of comparing it to when you're not quite an adult or a child. And I think as a viewer, that kind of enabled you to understand what she's thinking and feeling at that specific point. We saw just how strong the hybrid asymptomatic people were throughout the season, and she is one of them and has adopted heightened senses and also strength and damage resistance. She is basically a superhuman now. She stated that there were many others like her out there, and that they escaped from the school and have been living in a community of their own. Namra makes the decision to stay on the other side of the wall with the people of her kind for the time being. And this is then when we see her jump off of the roof of the school, a building we knew was extremely high up based on the height that we saw earlier on in the show. It was almost like she's been learning how to use the additional powers and strengths to her advantage, rather than it being a weakness. I think this ties into what it was originally created for between the science teacher and his son. He didn't want him to be weak. But the people who are able to contain the virus and not fall victim to it are able to utilize it. It looks as though she's able to control the tendencies that it gives her to kill, and use the strength to better herself. After she jumps off of the roof, we see the camera cut to all of the main group still up there, and one by one we see a shot of shockness in all of their faces. I think this could mean one of a couple of things. I think they could be surprised at the sheer amount of people that were left behind and adopted the hybrid genes and are living there. We heard Namra claim that they were there. We saw how frustrated Onjo and the gang were for being left behind, while Steven eventually finding safety. A group of part human, part monster beings with pent-up anger and resentment to the people living on the other side, who had no regard for their life at one point and actually tried to kill them, could provide an environment and atmosphere that wouldn't bode well for civilization in the second season. They could have also been shocked at the behavior of Namra when she jumped off the roof. She's still part monster, and around people that are part monster, her personality could have been a complete contrast to the person they were just having a conversation with. I think it's probably a combination of both. We see the slight drop in Namra's face as she makes the jump and zips up her jacket. I think there are many others like her, and they could be planning to seek revenge in the second season, and the group was stood there shocked just due to the sheer amount of people that were in front of them. Maybe some mutations of the virus also caused people's appearance to be completely different, and gain more than just strength and heightened vision, hearing and smell. Either way, I think Season 2 is going to be just as epic as the first, and I can't wait to see it. So, there you have it. What did you think of this show? Did you enjoy it?